This is a podcast devoted to your San Francisco Giants.
Strike three called! A cutter on the outside corner at the knees. The ball game is over, and the Giants have won the National League pennant.
If you're sick of the East Coast bias, this podcast is for you.
The ball game is over. The series is over. The Giants are heading to Philadelphia for the National League Championship Series.
With your hosts, Willie Dills, Mike G, and Ben Lee.
Swing and a miss, and that's it! The Giants are world champions as they come pouring out of the dugout. Circling Brian Wilson, the bullpen, flying in from left center field, dancing, hugging, and celebrating for all you Giants fans, wherever you are. This party is just getting started.
Don't forget your glove, grab some pine, and settle in. This is Torture Cast.
Everybody, welcome to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. It is June 21st, a lovely Tuesday night. Not so lovely after tonight's game, but we're still going to forge ahead. My name is Willie Dills, and I'm here with my co-host, Ben Lee. Welcome, Ben Lee. What's going on, man?
Well, after that game, not a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah,
to be perfectly honest.
That was one that we want to forget.
I sat through the whole thing. I'm not sure why I sat through the whole thing because it was a little like watching a train wreck, but it had some really good moments. So I'm looking forward to talking about a couple of things and just trying to salvage any kind of good feeling out of the 9-2 loss. You know.
Yeah, let's see if we can take something positive away from tonight's game. You may notice we don't have Mike G tonight. Unfortunately, he could not make it. He had to work late and had some other things come up. So we'll miss him for tonight, but hopefully he'll be back next week. And, you know, I think even without him tonight, I think we've got a lot to talk about. So I'm looking forward to tonight's show. I mean, there's been a lot going on in the Giants world, even though it hasn't been the best week. Are we still in first place, or did we drop down to second?
Today we are, I believe, 0.5 games behind as of today. Arizona did actually pick up a win over the Kansas City Royals.
All right. I guess we don't really deserve to be in first place, to be quite honest. But
we hung on to it awfully long for how bad we were going on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sad to hear, but at the same time, we knew it was coming. Maybe this will be a little shot in the rear for us to get something going.
I mean, 0 for 31 with runners in scoring position is not a first place team. It shouldn't be a first place team. So I guess we're kind of getting what we deserve right now. You know, as much as our offense is suffering the loss of some important cogs in the wheel, we still shouldn't be 0 for 31 with runners in scoring position. That's historically pathetic right there. I mean, that's about as bad as it gets.
Pretty painful. And I mean, it's the funny thing is, it's not like we haven't scored any runs during that time, but none of them have been, you know, worthy of an at-bat in scoring position. So it's been sac flies, it's been a couple of home runs. And you know, in one case, an RBI triple.
Yeah.
So we've managed some interesting ways to find, somehow score and still not get any hits with somebody on second or third.
Yeah.
Pretty astounding.
You know, it's one of those things so one of the problems with the Giants offense for the last bunch of years now really has been our inability to take walks. And I've been a big proponent of taking more pitches for a long time now, because it helps your team in a lot of different ways. First of all, it causes the opposing pitcher to throw more pitches, and, so you get to the bullpen quicker. The quicker you get to the bullpen early in a series, the less pitches are available late in the series. But also, if you string a couple of hits together but nobody takes a walk, that's not a run scoring inning. If you string a couple hits and a walk together, you're probably going to have a run in that inning. Not only that, but you put the pitcher in the stretch, and out of the stretch, most pitchers lose a little bit of zip on their fastball. They lose a little bit of break on their breaking balls. They're a little bit easier to hit. So, I mean, that's obviously, the evidence doesn't support that theory when we're 0 for 31, but what I'm saying is pitchers out of the stretch are a little easier to hit in general. And, we're not getting people into the stretch unless we get a base hit. And this is kind of one of the things that, while Carney Lansford was our hitting coach, and we were known for being an overly aggressive ball club, this is one of those things that has kind of come back to bite us in the butt more than a few times, and we started to get a little bit better at this, but we need to maintain that plate discipline. And we really only have a couple guys on the team who are kind of known for that. I mean, we got Pat Burrell,
right?
And that's pretty much it, really. Actually,
mostly Pat Burrell. And I mean, a couple of the guys who came up, you'll notice Brandon Crawford and Brandon Belt have actually had some pretty decent looks at the strike zone. Brandon Belt's one of those guys. I think in a year or two, he's going to be the guy where, if he takes the pitch, the umpire goes, "Well, that was probably a ball then." All right.
Yeah.
If it's when it's borderline, it's probably going to go his way. But he's going to be one of the few on a team that tends to swing quickly and swing early. I mean, Pablo Sandoval is kind of the poster boy for this. And tonight too, you really saw he had a lot of times where it was like, "Well, I'm just going to go ahead and swing." The difference with Sandoval is he'll actually hit it in a lot of cases. Yeah, he'll
square the ball up at least,
Right, but a lot of guys kind of follow that similar approach.
Yeah, and you look at a guy like Sanchez. I mean, Sanchez isn't really known as an overly aggressive hitter, and he'll, if you look at the stats on his pitches per at bat, they're actually kind of high. But the thing he does is he fouls a lot of pitches off. So it's not like he's taking a lot of balls necessarily. He's just consistently fouling the ball off and making contact. But I see him going, 0-2 and then battling, but never really getting to that 3-2 count. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the way it is for a lot of the guys on this team. They tend to foul a lot of pitches off, and they're not actually taking the pitches out of the strike zone, which is really what we need to do when we're a weak hitting team. I mean, we need to find other ways to get on base, and we're not doing that. So clearly it's hurting us. And so hopefully we'll see. I know Mullins is a better hitting coach than I think Lansford was, and hopefully he's pounding this into our hitters' heads. Take some pitches,
Yeah, I mean, it is nice to see that, because one of the things that I was actually looking at a second ago, if you look at Andres Torres in the leadoff spot, from the leadoff spot, his average is about 235, and his on-base percentage is about 324. I mean, he's taken, 17 walks from the, while batting in the leadoff spot. And that's not just to lead off a game. That's his entire time being in the leadoff spot.
Yeah.
He's taken 17 walks. I mean, 17 walks and 36 hits out of 153 at-bats.
Yeah,
it's not a ton.
He's got some room for improvement there for sure. It's kind of funky because he's got all the tools to be a really great leadoff hitter. I mean, he's switch hits. Mm-hmm. He's quick. He's got some pop too, so he's not a guy that you can just, play. You can't just play on the grass when he's up because you got to respect his power a little bit. But for some reason or another, he hasn't quite found a way to really capitalize on all of those tools. And while he is an amazing story and an amazing player who's found a way, to be on a good team in the major leagues after so many years as a journeyman, he's got some growing to do still as a leadoff hitter. And unfortunately, he's in his early 30s. It's not like he's really getting faster. I'm hoping he can find a way to figure out exactly what you need to do from that leadoff position, because he really does have all the tools. He's got everything that we need out of a leadoff hitter. He just doesn't seem to have the plate discipline yet. So
it's true. Although it is worth pointing out that on the team right now, if you look, out of everybody who's active, the guys who are seeing the most plate appearances the most pitches per plate appearance rather, you got Eli Whiteside, who's seeing about 4.23 pitches per plate appearance, and you got Andres Torres, who's seeing 4.22.
Okay,
that's actually ahead of Pat Burrell, who's at 4.1.
Yeah,
but not by much. I mean, you're getting all these guys seeing about 4 pitches per at bat or so. It's not bad, but 4, we could still be doing better than 4.
Yeah.
The guy who leads the team right now, other than let's see, a couple of guys with like 1 or 2 at bats, but the guy who leads the team right now is still Brandon Belt. 4.33. He's got a great eye, and we want to see him back soon, because having somebody in the lineup who takes has some patience and will sort of wait and take a few pitches is really valuable to the team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And time will tell if we kind of get this going. I don't foresee Huff hitting 240 for the entire season. Obviously, we've heard Brian Sabian talk about, and Bruce Bochy talk about, how we're expecting these guys to pick it up at some point. I mean, clearly right now we've got Tejada and Hall playing up the middle for us. That's not the team we were really envisioning. Whiteside is our cat. It's not the team we were envisioning having. That being said, we still need to find a way with the team that we're putting out on the field. And so, I for one, I'm not like a guy who's like, oh God, these guys are just horrible every time we lose. But it's getting to the point now where something needs to wake these guys up. And last year we got swept by the A's about halfway through the year, and we went on a tear right afterwards. So tonight's not a good indication, losing 9-2 and having Baumgartner give up 8 runs with only one out. But we'll see what happens.
We'll come back to that topic, and we'll probably wince all over again when we do.
Exactly. Well, let's go ahead and get to our first major topic for the night. Let's talk about the potential league restructuring. And if you guys haven't heard about this, there has been talk that the Major League Baseball Players Association and Major League owners have been considering a switch to 2 15-team leagues. There's a couple of different possibilities on how this will work, but basically both of them involve moving one team from the National League to the American League. Currently, we have 16 teams in the National, 14 teams in the American League. There's only 4 teams in the American League West, and there's 6 teams in the National League Central. So, I mean, that's obviously makes a big difference when you're talking about you only have to beat 3 other teams to get into the playoffs, whereas in the National League Central, you got to beat 5 other teams. So both of those options involve moving a team to the American League, but these options also have some funkiness to them. So the other potential change that would be made is there'd be 5 teams making the playoffs instead of 4, 3 division leaders and 1 wildcard team. Now, there's a few different ways that this could happen, but before we get too deep into the nuts and bolts of this thing, what are your initial thoughts on this? Do you think this is at all a good idea? Do you think this is just the stupidest thing you've ever heard? What's your take on this?
It's funny because it's a little weird. The thing that you're looking at is if you actually were to take one of these teams and move them to the American League, what's most commonly being looked at is either a team that's currently about to be sold, like the Houston Astros, being essentially given almost like a rider in the contract that says, hey, if you're going to purchase this team, one of our conditions for allowing you to purchase the team is that you move it to the American League. And so the idea has been brought up that you could bring Houston in and you could move them into the AL West, just the same way that Texas is in the AL West, Houston can also go there. That set up some, cross-state rivalries and some other things like that. But what you're really looking at then, though, is you either have one team constantly on a bye every week in each league, or you have interleague play every single day.
All season long, exactly.
All season long. And it'd just be one team in interleague play, which is not necessarily even. A lot of people make a big thing about how the American League is better than the National League. I don't know that necessarily is true, maybe on a very wide overall scale, depending on what you're looking at. But either way, the style of play is different between the two. A lot of people, though, have said as a result, well, in that case, either use or abolish the DH rule and have a designated hitter in every single team or in none, because otherwise you're subjecting teams to this sort of back and forth, constantly changing. And especially with having to have 2 of them play against each other across league all the time, the differences in rules really become a lot more apparent. Yeah,
and honestly, I think we should just get rid of the DH. I think it's gone on long enough. It's just, like there was a good example, I think, in the Chronicle about, there's somebody wrote a story about this and saying that like a guy like Shearholtz really wouldn't play, period, in the American League. In the American League, there just really isn't the strategy that you see in the National League. Like a manager for an American League team, their job is really just a talent scout. Pick the best 9 guys, the best 9 hitters, put them in an order, and let them go out there every single game. In the National League, you have to deal with double switching. You have to deal with when to pull your pitcher because maybe he has another at-bat coming. You have to deal with having guys on your team who are just pretty much pinch hitters, late-inning defensive replacements, guys like Shearholtz. And those guys can find a real niche and carve out a solid career in the National League. Whereas in the American League, you can have guys on the bench who basically just ride the bench all year long waiting for someone to get hurt. And it just really seems it's not really like baseball to me. Like baseball to me is you put 9 guys out on the field, and then those 9 guys also have to hit. And it's just kind of strange. Like a guy like David Ortiz, probably wouldn't really be in the league if he had to go out there every single day and feel his position. Maybe it would force him to learn to play his position, but when when you've got a guy who's as good of a hitter as he is, and his team and the Boston Red Sox are playing in National League parks, and he's not in the lineup, period, like that shows you how bad he has to be at first base to take that big of a bat out of your lineup, you know? So I'm hoping if this does happen that means that we'll see the end of the DH, but I don't know. I can't really see the Players Association being down for that because they would be losing some of their top hitters, you know?
Right. And they're definitely one of the things that the Players Association has always tried to do is really protect their guys, protect their contracts, make sure, you know, that they're not letting that happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And so I can definitely see them putting up a fight with the removal of the DH rule.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, somebody else pointed out, well, then put a DH everywhere, because not only does that potentially extend some guys' careers, but there are some guys out there, and this isn't actually something I personally agree with, but there are some guys out there who think that not having a DH means it's really painful to have to watch a pitcher go up and hit, when it turns into, in a lot of cases, not always. After all, you want to bat Madison Bumgarner, you know, fifth.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it's true.
But in a lot of cases, the guy's going to be an automatic out. You're not looking at, you know, especially this year, you know, Lincecum has been a pretty decent batting pitcher on and off throughout his career. This year, not so much. Yeah. And it's kind of, you know, you have these days, you have the guy walk up there and you go, either it's going to be a surprise Sanchez triple, or 3 out of 5 of these guys in the lineup are probably just going to ground out.
Yeah. No, and it's true.
You know,
but that again adds to the strategy of the manager, and one of the things I really enjoy. And while people say, "Oh my God, I don't want to watch a pitcher hit," I really enjoy watching a pitcher hit because it's always kind of a funny situation. So, like, let's say you've got a runner on third and 1 out, right? You know, does your pitcher put down a safety bunt, a safety squeeze, or you know, do you let him swing away? You know, if you have a runner on first and second and 1 out, do you have the pitcher hit or bunt? There's just a lot of weird situations that come up. Whereas in the DH, you know, everyone's just swinging away, you know, and there's not really, you know, you're not going to steal quite as much because you take out the potential of, you know, a big inning and things like that. And so you don't see baseball played in its purest form necessarily. And one of the things about pitching is that you are required to do those other things to help yourself out. Bunt a runner over, you know, maybe take a few pitches, get a couple pitches out of the other opposing pitcher. There's always those funny situations where they throw like 3 curveballs and they swing really horribly at all 3 of them. I mean, those are interesting at bats to me, and we're not going to see those if we never have pitchers hitting anymore, you know? So, I understand people really like the long ball, man. Chicks dig the long ball. We all know that. But but the thing is I feel like the American League fans are actually kind of missing out, and they don't even know they're missing out, you know? So I'm kind of a fan of just letting it go. It wasn't there for so long, and it's only been around since the 70s. You know, it's not something that's like ingrained in baseball. And I think it's something we can get rid of. So that's my bid. I also have another idea about this though. I think we should, instead of having 2 15-team leagues, I think we should just drop 2 teams. And the 2 teams I'm talking about dropping are both of the teams from Florida. Let's be honest.
You're talking about contraction. You're pulling out the big anti-aircraft gun here.
Yes. I really think contraction I think it's the right thing to do right now. We got 30 teams. We got 2 teams in Florida who the Marlins have won 2 championships in the last 10 years. They won, or no, I guess it's 15 years maybe, something like that. 97 and 2001, I think it is, or 2002. I can't remember the other one. Maybe you can look that up for me so I don't sound like a total idiot. But I know, you know, I know that Tampa Bay's been good for a long time too, and yet you look at the attendance numbers and they are at the bottom. People in Florida just don't care about baseball for whatever reason. And it can't be the teams. The teams have been successful. It's got to be, and it can't really be the weather. I mean, the weather there is nice most of the summer. I mean, you get hurricanes and stuff, but it's just got to be the people. I mean, the people just seem to.
Hurricanes ain't no big thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. People just don't seem to care, and I get it when Kansas City doesn't have a lot of fans. But I mean, look at it like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is still over 20,000 a game, and those guys have been horrible for so long. And Tampa Bay is a good team, and people still aren't coming out to see them. So, I think it's time to just bite the bullet and cut our losses here.
That is a good point. I mean, the thing is, you do have enough diehard fans down there that it's hard to. I mean, obviously, if the MLB owners were going to push through with something like that, they would just push through with it. But at the same time, it's hard to take something that you've spent enough time establishing like that and then tell two of the owners, you know what, we're going to cut you loose, because the owners do get a lot of pull with each other, and they'd essentially have to all decide unanimously or all appear to decide unanimously. They're very much an old boys club, and one of the ways that they tend to operate is in that sort of well, if we're going to do this, we all have to show support. You don't get a lot of guys who come out, especially out of the owners, and say, that was really stupid and we really butchered that one up.
Yeah.
So it's tough, because that's something that I think you would see a lot of pushback from those clubs, even if they're in a position where they're not making a lot of money, where they're really kind of being pushed back into a corner. A lot of people, I think, really don't want to see the Tampa Bay Rays go. A lot of people don't want to see,
I know the
Florida
Yankees
Marlins in their story. Well, the Yankees and the Red Sox would be probably incredibly excited if the Rays went, but they've been they were such an exciting young team for so long, especially for the last few, well, I guess just for the last few years, but they really have made such a big push. The baseball fan in me doesn't want to see that storyline leave the league. Yeah. Especially not under this kind of auspice. You don't want to see a team like Tampa that regularly has been making the playoffs or pushing for the playoffs get pulled out because nobody's coming to the games.
Yeah,
you almost want to see, if anything, you almost want to see the team relocate somewhere where they're going to be more successful. You don't want to see baseball leave Florida, but you want to see a team like Tampa get to do well and be put in an environment where they are going to succeed.
And have people show up. But I mean, I guess the thing is there's another thing to contracting the league, and that is that, every time you expand the league, you dilute the players. The quality goes down just a touch. I feel like there are players in this league right now that wouldn't be here, except for the fact that there's 30, 25-man rosters that have to get filled. You contract the teams, just two teams. You go down to 28. You're basically upping the ante as far as what talent it takes to get into Major League Baseball. And we'd see, overall, we'd see improved play. So I just feel like after this amount of time, and by the way, it was 2003 when the Marlins won their second World Series.
And 1997, yeah.
97 and 2003. I had the first one right, but yeah. But, you see a team like the Marlins win 2 championships in a very short amount of time, and yet they still aren't drawing. It's just one of those things where it's like, what do you really have to do as a sports owner in that town to draw people to the stadium? And it's like 2 championships in 6 years isn't going to cut it. What more can you do? And the Tampa Bay Rays have been putting an exciting team on the ball field for the past 3 or 4 years now, and they're still at the bottom of the attendance. So that would be my vote if I was an owner, which I'm not, but I wouldn't mind seeing that go.
We got to have our lunatic fringe concepts every so often.
Exactly.
I have heard that one talked about, though, and I'll be curious to see if it gets mentioned a little bit more as we get closer to, as more talk of league restructuring comes up.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't talk about league restructuring without coming up with random wild ideas. But one of the things that kind of shocked me about looking at the attendance report for this year, I didn't realize that the Phillies were the number 1 drawing team. And I guess it doesn't really surprise me since that team is so rabid about baseball, that whole city. But I guess I just kind of always figured the Yankees were just the number 1 team in attendance, and I never really looked at it. San Francisco is number 3, though, by the way. And I think the only reason that we're behind both of these teams is our stadium holds less. Our stadium holds about 42. So that's pretty much the biggest we can get. We're averaging 41.6. So
right, and we've sold out every single home game
every single
we've had. That's which is astounding. It's almost nobody has ever sold out every single home game.
And think about it. If we could hold 46, I bet 46 would go, right? I mean,
or at least 46 would buy tickets. I mean, inevitably, they'll say it's a sellout here at AT&T Park, and the number is always slightly different. And then you look over and it's like those left field, nosebleed seats are still just about mostly empty. And you're like, well, all right, I guess some people decided to stay home or get, rained in where there wasn't any rain or something.
There's always those people who buy the tickets and never show up. And there's also tickets that are just, people just have them like a company just buys season tickets, and they don't always go to every game.
Right.
But the other major thing quickly before we move on is 5 teams making the playoffs. What do you think about that? Do we need another team getting into the playoffs? How do we even handle 2 wildcard teams? Like, do they play 3 games, 1 game? What do they do?
There's two schools of thought on this one. One of them is that it's going to give more teams an incentive to push, and it's going to, let that playoff excitement reach more cities. And I mean, given that we were caught up in all that playoff excitement last year, it's hard not to agree with that. But personally, my take on it is I don't like one of the things that always bugs me about the NHL, being a local to the Bay Area. Obviously, I'm a big Sharks fan, but it always bugs me on some level as a baseball fan to look over at the playoffs and go, well, geez, like half the league made it.
Yeah. And NBA too. I mean, half the league pretty much. Yeah.
NBA too. MLS a little bit. It's one of those things you look at it and you're just like, okay, so darn near everybody is getting a playoff berth. And you're excited for all those teams. But man, those things get drawn out sometimes, and you're just like, "This is, you were what? The NHL is still in playoffs."
Yeah, and there's like 3 days between games, and it just goes on for far too long. Yeah,
right. And I mean, I love watching hockey, but it's just I do kind of feel like that sort of. It doesn't cheapen the playoffs, but it does change what they mean. Yeah. I like being able to look at it and say, the best team out of these divisions got in. I do like the idea of the wild card, being able to take a team like the Braves that were really good last year and let them still get in. But one of the things that people say is, if you add another wild card, that whole thing with the Giants and the Padres last year, nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly.
You hit that end of I guess maybe that same battle would crop up somewhere else, fighting for the Padres spot earlier a little bit in the season. Or maybe it changes the way that some of the teams play, knowing that they actually have another chance at another spot and they push a little bit harder. But honestly, the Giants and the Padres, that game that Jonathan Sanchez pitched his rear end off for.
And ran his rear end off, too.
Gotta agree. And you do that one with an extra wild card spot, and suddenly it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
and
that was
regardless,
one of the most exciting games I've ever seen in my life. And it was one of the most exciting 3-game series I've ever seen in my life, knowing that it was potentially a 4-game series if we don't win that game.
Yeah, it was potentially going to come down to the absolute wire.
And it was an unbelievable feeling to win that game, win the division, make the playoffs. I mean, honestly, making the playoffs was it was as big as far as an excitement factor as winning the whole damn thing in a lot of ways, because we didn't really expect to get there last year. I mean, we knew we were contending, but the Padres were so good all year. And, making up all that ground so late in the season and then actually finally putting them away. I mean, getting up like 4 games, and then finally putting them away was just so exciting. And you kind of dilute that even more the more teams you add to the playoffs. And let's not forget, I think it was 93 when we win over 100 games and we don't make the playoffs, back when there was 2 divisions and 1 team from each one got in.
Oh man!
I mean, those were. I mean, that was heartbreaking. And that was, being in the playoffs was a huge deal. And when the Braves were in the playoffs year in and year out, it was like a really amazing feat back then. And we're just not. You don't see that anymore. The regular season is a little bit more diluted and a little bit less exciting the more teams you add. So I kind of feel like 4 teams is about right. I feel like we should just stay there. And not only that, but let's say you do have 2 wildcard teams, right? And one of the ideas I've seen thrown out is a 1-game playoff. Now, that means that those 2 teams are going to have to throw their best guy out on the mound for that 1-game playoff, while the other team that they're going to have to play basically is kind of getting a bye in the sense, because they're going to waste their best pitcher on that 1-game playoff, and you're throwing your ace out there against their number 2 guy once the series starts. So it's
been pointed out that makes sense. So because the entire thing, like it's the same reason that we went into the postseason facing the Braves instead of the Phillies, because the Phillies were the better team by record, and so they got to face the team that didn't do as well. It comes down to the same thing. It's like, well, if you wanted to get the bye and put your top guy into the first game, you should have played better.
Yeah. And honestly, like, there's no team that would ever go, well, let's put out our second guy so we can save him in case we win this game. I mean, that wouldn't happen, obviously. But I just think you're already getting home field advantage. That's really what you played for. To then also get, oh, by the way, your number 1 goes against or your number 2 goes against our number 1 when the series starts. That just seems like overkill. I don't think we need that. I think it's much better to, the home field advantage is what you get. The 1 seed plays the 4 seed. I think that's enough. I think that's enough of an advantage that we don't need to pile on and go, hey, by the way, also you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to throw out your number 1 guy against this other team here. So I hope that doesn't happen. I'm not against this, 15 teams. I think the 3-5 team divisions makes a lot more sense, or throwing out the Florida team. So that's my vote. So, quickly before we get to our week in review preview, let's talk about some news going on with the Giants organization. Brandon Belt is progressing quickly. He should be back sometime soon. Apparently, he has a hairline fracture in his wrist. For those of you who don't know, he actually got hit on the arm and stayed in the game, and then was removed and put on the DL. They've removed the cast, and he is starting to feel better. He's fielding and throwing, and he should be able to take some swings pretty soon here. So I'm excited to see Belt back. I think we need a shot in the arm from somewhere. I don't know if Belt's the guy, but it can't get any worse right now, right? So are you excited to see him come back? Where does he fit too?
That is a tough one. I'd have to say right now though, you got to put Belt either at. I don't feel like we've got enough serious holes in the outfield to put Belt out there.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, Huff is actually doing pretty darn well at first. Like, he's probably one of the best hitters on the team right now. You got to face it.
Right now, yeah, not season wide, but lately he's
but
starting to come around a little bit. He's starting to actually rope the ball like
he's heating up a little bit. I mean, today he was 2 for 2 before they pulled him because the fact that it was a blowout, and they kind of said, well, let's give Huffy a break. I mean, even Huff will admit that he gets gassed sometimes, even though he tries to work through it and play through it. I mean, the guy's definitely a gamer, but he needs a break every so often. But you really don't want.
He needs a blow for sure. I mean, he gets run out there every day right now.
Right. Well, and you have to, because who else is going to hit?
Yeah.
I mean, we tried Emmanuel Burris out there today, and that didn't completely backfire on us. I mean, the guy's got a great glove, and he's fast, but
yeah. I think it's just good to know that there's guys starting to come back. He's been gone for a while. He didn't hit well while he was here, but he had his moments, and I think he's definitely got the potential to turn into a quality major league player. He needs to get back in there though, and it would be nice to have him sit on the bench. He's a left-handed hitter that can pinch hit as well, so that's always a good thing to have. And right now, the way it's going, we just need someone. I mean, we need anyone. It's like it's just that whatever we're doing is not working out right now. So
it's a big struggle, and I think that you gotta have somebody like Belt come back just in time, so that somebody like Belt, who's got a good eye, who's got he's gonna be a good hitter. He can't necessarily get himself enough at bats to show that he's being a good hitter, and to really get some time to develop, seeing major league pitching more often. But once he gets that chance, I really think that he's going to be able to cement himself into the lineup a lot of the way that Posey did.
Yeah.
It's just getting him that chance is going to be hard with the way that the lineup looks like this year, because our weakest spots aren't spots that Belt can fill himself.
Yeah, exactly. Unless Belt can learn how to play second base or shortstop, he doesn't necessarily fill the gaping holes right now. But we need everything we can get right now. So hopefully he'll be back soon. Speaking of guys, we need to fill some holes. Let's talk a little bit about the minor leagues. What's going on over there? I know we've got All-Star games coming up and stuff, and we got a lot of All-Stars down there, right?
Yeah, we actually have the All-Star games were actually today for both of the A-level leagues, or at least for the ones that we're involved in. The South Atlantic League, or as it's nicknamed, the Sally League. That's our low A affiliate. We've got the Augusta Green Jackets down there, and actually, the third baseman for the Green Jackets, Adam Duvall, actually was the MVP for the Sally League All-Star game.
Sweet.
So that's always nice to see, and it's a guy. Duvall doesn't get talked about a ton when you're talking about big prospects for the Giants, so it's nice to see somebody kind of stepping up and getting some recognition for having a good game.
Yeah, and in the minors, you don't get a lot of recognition, period. So, that's just a cool thing for that guy in his life. You know what I mean? To win the All-Star MVP, whether it's low A or in the majors. So, and then also high A, we've got a bunch, right?
Yeah, actually, and these are two guys who are being talked about. You've got Gary Brown, who's an outfielder who is mashing the ball down in San Jose, and he's a guy that a lot of people are calling is going to be one of our big corner outfielders of the future. Although, of course, with the way things are going right now, people are saying the future needs to start awfully soon.
Yeah, let's
But
get him up
you've
here.
also right. You've also got Zach Wheeler, who was our a draft pick. I think he was our top draft pick last year. I want to say.
Yeah, he's one of the guys like behind Kane, behind Bumgarner, behind Lincecum. He's like
right
behind those guys on their heels. So.
Wheeler is really considered one of the top prospects in our organization. Wheeler and Belt are really two of the guys that people are saying are going to be excellent for us in the future. One of the things about Wheeler, though, is there's just so much stacked up ahead of him. It's more likely, I think, that we see him probably finish out the year either at high A or maybe at double A once the weather starts heating up a little. Although, what's nice is our double A affiliate Richmond now. We used to have Connecticut was our double A affiliate before, and it's cold up there. Yeah. So you see completely different reads off of guys from the beginning of the season till the end. It's when the ball starts getting warmer because the weather starts getting warmer, things change. Richmond, you're going to see a little bit more even-handed read of how prospects are doing. And hopefully Wheeler is going to get a chance there either this year because he's definitely pitching well enough for it. I mean, the guy's got a 3.26 ERA in San Jose this year, and that's he's looking pretty good as a starter, 6-2 with a good offense behind him. But you want to see him get a chance to play a little bit higher up competition and maybe make it to Fresno next year so we can see him against just about major league ready guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's great to see that we've got 5 guys down there all making the All-Star team. That says a lot about the talent that we've got coming up. And if you look, I mean, what is like 8 or 9 guys who were key elements to our World Championship season last year all came up through the organization. So hopefully that's a trend that can continue for a long time. And rounding out our minor league news, Barry Zito throws a complete game shutout versus the Salt Lake City Bees. I was actually just in Salt Lake City, and I drove right by their stadium, and they're actually having a game, and I was thinking, oh, it'd be awesome to go see a game right now in another city, see a minor league game, But this is good news on a lot of fronts. Obviously, it's against AAA hitting. It's not against Major League hitting, but he hasn't really had a bad outing down there. And, it's very easy. These guys are AAA hitters, but fact remains, these guys are professional ball players. And, you could easily go down there and struggle and lose a lot of confidence, but this has to build his confidence. This has to make him feel good coming back up. And another thing it does, it could potentially open up the options of making a trade for somebody, which we'll get to more later. But this is really, really great news. So I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah, and you really want to know, I mean, one of the big questions with Zito right now is where's his velocity at? Is he picked up some of that speed that he's lost the last couple of years? Does he have some snap on his fastball? Andrew Baggerly, the SF Giants beat reporter for the San Jose Mercury News, said that he actually got to see a little bit of footage, some of the highlights from Zito's performance, and his breaking ball has had some late movement on him, which they really haven't had as much in the last year or two. They had a little bit of snap and a little bit of sizzle. So the AAA guys, let's face it, they're not the same as pitching against guys at the major league level, but it sounds like from what we're seeing, there's some evidence that Zito has put some things together that are going to give him a good push for the starting rotation when he comes back up.
Yeah, and I mean, if it does make Sabian's job a little bit easier, and potentially give us the option of moving some people around and getting some more offense in here, that's not a bad thing. I can't see how that's a bad thing. So
yeah.
We'll see how that all plays out. But
it's funny that you were mentioning the Salt Lake City Bees earlier, by the way, because the Bees have really gotten to see a lot of our major league guys lately, and that is a kick on our DL. But you've got Zito in there. Yeah, we just had Fresno just had an away trip to Salt Lake City. They took the Panda with them, as well as Mike Fontenot. You had a bunch of guys who going over there from the big league club. You've got Darren Ford down there with him right now. Barry Zito is just about ready to come back up. I mean, Salt Lake City has kind of been the brunt of the San Francisco Giants almost as much as the Fresno Grizzlies.
They're going, hey man, we had a good season going, and then you sent all your major leaguers down. But I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about this. So, all right, let's before we go. I mean, we can revel a little bit in how bad it is for the Dodgers right now, right?
Yeah, I'm the guy that wants to see them do poorly on the baseball field. You don't really want to see it. Like, the only thing that makes me chuckle about this whole thing that McCourt's having, the trouble, for those people that don't know, Frank McCourt, the owner of the Dodgers and writer of a couple of books, you may have heard of Angela's Ashes, is actually facing major trouble with the divorce. He's having a lot of trouble financially, and he currently is not in a position to fulfill the payroll for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, they still have to pay Manny, which is
that's I think what
really,
I got a kick
really
out of.
bad. Yeah,
I was, there are a lot of people in LA who liked Manny Ramirez. I was never a big fan of him, obviously being up here and just not liking Manny Ramirez, to be honest.
yeah.
But the fact that they still owe him money and that's really what's kind of put the team over the edge, I admit to taking a little bit of joy in that. But my thing about the Dodgers, and I've heard this echoed by a couple other people, I always want the Dodgers to do well but worse than us. Because the rivalry isn't interesting if we're doing really well and the Dodgers blow, or vice versa, which is true. A couple of years back in 2008, the Dodgers were a killer team and we were aching a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's when one team clearly outmatches the other, the rivalry just isn't as interesting. And when we're on even ground, that's when it gets really heated. And when beating them really, I mean, you always feel good to beat your rivals. You always feel good to see the Dodgers walk off the field, just, back to the dugout, hanging their heads. But you feel better when you know that you beat them and not
they
just
were
that
a good team. Yeah.
And not just that you plowed them into the ground
yeah. No, it's true.
Like you expected or anything like that.
Speaking of getting plowed into the ground,
that just happened.
A quick mention. Yeah, the one of the guys who assaulted Brian Stowe is facing jail time now. So, I don't know if it's great news. I mean, it's it's a little bit of vindication for the Stowe family, but I'm just glad that at least we got one of these guys. It's just such a sad story, and and it's really made me have a new respect for some of the people on our team. And how much they've stepped up and supported Brian Stowe. I mean, you got Affelt, who's kind of taken the reins as being the guy who's going to be our ambassador of charity, and he's really gone above and beyond. He's visiting all the time. Barry Bonds has started a fund for the Stowe family's children for college, and Lincecum gave $25,000 to the Stowe fund. So just a lot of cool stuff going on there.
Yeah, I mean, and you hate to see that it's something like this that brings these guys out, but at the same time, it's something that the Giants community has really gotten to bond over. I was at one of the games where a lot of friends and family of Brian Stowe were collecting donations, and I really made a point to get some money into the boot and try and help him along a little, because he's a fellow Giants fan and a fellow human being who's really just been in a horrible situation, and you just want to see him pull through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was a guy who's such a big fan that he's going to games in other stadiums, and that's it's just a shame when something like this happens. So just want to kind of give that quick shout out. Let's quickly go over, because we don't have a lot of time here, let's quickly go over some of the highlights and lowlights of this last week. Clearly there was more lowlights than highlights, but
there's some of both, so we'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I think was a positive first of all, Lincecum's still not pitching great, but he's not having horrible games like he was for a second there. The game that we lost to Oakland, he still too many walks, but his strikeouts were up and he only gave up the 2 earned runs. He's kind of getting a little bit back, and hopefully what happened last year with August and September is that he just turns it around. It didn't happen immediately, but that was one of the positives I could see. Him and Kane's pitching over the last week were not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, so much of what's been going on with the team right now has to do with the offense more than the pitching. I mean, with the exception of Bumgarner's start today, you really haven't seen a ton of guys who just haven't pitched well.
Sanchez had a bad game. Vogelsong's still been strong. But I think today's Bumgarner's start today was actually broke a streak of 10 consecutive quality starts, they call them, which is really kind of a funky stat, but it's 6 innings pitched with less than 3 earned runs.
Yeah, and I think they're saying that Bumgarner's start was actually one of the first times that has happened to that extent without getting more than 1 out in an inning with
since
8
the live ball
hits.
era or something like that.
Yeah, since 1920. I mean, it's it was pretty historically bad, and it's too bad that it's a shame for Bumgarner, because he's been pitching so well, and he has a rough outing, and the Twins, to be honest, took advantage of the fact that Bumgarner stays in the zone. 22 out of 25 pitches thrown for strikes. He hangs around the zone. He keeps it somewhere that you can hit. When you got guys like Joe Mauer in the lineup who can hit just about any part of the zone for the most part, you're asking for trouble a little bit. It's you
By the
almost
way,
wish that he had bid a little more.
can I just say that the Twins are sitting on a freaking gold mine with this Mauer guy? They've got him signed until 2018. And he's just like an unbelievable physical player. I mean, he's 6'5" and strong and can hit like a ball anywhere in the zone, like you were saying. I mean, he's like a guy like that that's just gold to have signed through 7 more seasons. So
Yeah, and I think that Mauer is one of the guys that everybody had in mind when Posey came up, just thinking, you want that homegrown pitcher who can hit and who can call a game. Mauer has had 3 Gold Gloves, probably helped by the fact that he's got such a great offense, but he's had 3 Gold Gloves. He's been the AL batting champ. I mean, Mauer is one of those guys
package.
He is the total package, except for durability concerns that you're seeing crop up. So one of the things with Mauer is nobody wants to see Mauer stop playing. Nobody wants to see Mauer stop batting because he is so exceptionally talented as an athlete. But people are starting to say maybe he needs to move to first base, especially with Justin Morneau, who's been the big guy on the Twins. Been facing a lot of injury problems lately. And I mean, not that Luke Hughes hasn't done decently well for them there, but Mauer at first base is one of the things people have said, maybe it's going to prolong his career. Maybe he's going to be able to last longer. The problem is he's so good behind the plate. You ask yourself, like, is it going to be worth it moving him like that and changing what you need in what positions?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at him as a first baseman, he doesn't quite stack up. And they've said the same thing about Posey too.
Exactly.
As far as a catcher goes, he's unbelievable. When you move him to first base, he's like 9th in as far as total offense. So another thing that was good that happened during the last few games here was Rowan actually wasn't horrible. Rowan had a couple of decent games, and he's consistently throughout his career as a Giant played a good defense. Had strong games in the outfield, and he's always been a hard-nosed guy. So
gotta agree.
And the fact that Huff have kind of come around a little bit, and Whiteside also kind of coming around a little bit. These are some good signs. If we can hit with runners in scoring position, I think we'd be just fine. But what we're doing and what we've done over this last week is we've made other pitchers, not top tier pitchers either, but other middle of the road pitchers look like friggin' Cy Young Award winners. I mean, Ian Kennedy with his game against us, 8 innings pitched, no earned runs, 10 strikeouts. 1 walk. I mean, we had Graham Godfrey. Some of these guys where you're just like, what? Like, I mean, Cahill, I get, but just everybody else. It's like, what are we? We're making these guys look unbelievable.
To be fair, Godfrey wasn't pitching too badly, but I mean, like Godfrey and we touched Moscoso a little bit early on, but it's true. Like one of the things about the Giants that you really noticed a couple of years ago is the guys that you look at in the league that you go, these guys are killing it right now. Those are the guys that we actually do pretty well against for the most part. I mean, not always,
it's funny. But we seem to get up for good pitchers. Yeah,
right. We'll hammer guys like Cliff Lee, and we'll hammer guys like Doc Halladay
or Ubaldo last year.
Or Ubaldo, we touched him up pretty good. But then you reach guys like Graham Godfrey or. You'll have Kevin Correa come back, and nothing against Correa. I always liked him, but he's not a staff ace type pitcher,
no.
And he'll just pound us into the floor.
Yeah,
and one of the things that people have put out there, though, and this actually makes a lot of sense when you consider our whole package, we swing at so many things that guys who are considered elite and really talented tend to stick around the zone, a lot like Bumgarner did today. And when you can square up a ball that stays close to the zone and you just tend to swing at everything, guys who don't have really deceptive stuff, you're going to be able to hit them a little more often. Because if you swing often and swing early, guys tend to stick around the strike zone. They're going to be somewhere you can hit. Guys who do more like Lincecum used to and have some real late tailing movement that ducks way out of the zone, ends up, dropping into the dirt. You swing early at that, you're not going to get anything. And so some of the guys who tend to be a little wilder and be a little more around the zone, we can't hit them because we swing at stuff that's
true.
Is junk.
Yeah. So let's talk quickly about some of the matchups coming up and what we're excited about. I'm always excited about Vogelsong these days, and he's going to go up against Blackburn, who I haven't really seen, but apparently he's been with their team for a little while now.
Yeah, he's got about 3-4 years with them. He's homegrown, so it's always nice to see. You like seeing guys who were early on with the same team that they started with.
And he had a good start his last start too, right? Against the White Sox.
Right. So yeah, he didn't allow a single run, went 8 innings pitched. I mean, he's been pretty solid for them. He's gotten, let's see, I can actually look some of this up here, but I mean, Nick Blackburn's been pretty solid. I'm guessing that he's going to be the kind of pitcher that'll give us fits. He's not a guy that you would immediately say front of the line, first rotation guy.
Yeah.
I mean, his ERA last year was like 5.42, the kind of guy that you say, oh, well, he's going to be decent probably as a third or a fourth. That's usually the guy that gives us fits. Let's face it.
It's true. I think, though, that we're going to see in the next 5 games, we're going to see some quality pitching, as usual with the Giants on both sides, though. A lot of low-scoring games, which we're used to. But, I think Lincecum is slowly coming around. So Sanchez, as always, if he can keep the ball in the zone, he's a great pitcher. And then the Kane game, I expect nothing but greatness out of him pretty much every time out. He struggled a little bit in a few starts this year, but hopefully the real question, though, here is what does Bumgarner do the game after this? Historically bad outing. Let's see what he does against Cleveland on the 26th. So
yeah,
looking forward to this whole week.
I do want to point out here, we're facing Minnesota and we're facing Cleveland. Cleveland really has been they've been a really interesting storyline this year because they've really seemed like they were overachieving for the beginning of the year. I mean, they got up to 12 games out in the AL Central, and the AL Central is not an easy division right now. You got Minnesota out there and you've got Detroit. Obviously, Detroit's kind of like my second team because that's where my mom's from, so I want to take a little pride in them being up at the top of the division. But the fact remains that Cleveland has been a tough team, but nobody really thought that they'd be able to maintain it. One of the cases in point with that is really Justin Masterson, who's the guy who, if the rotations hold up the way they are right now, that's the guy who Kane's going to be going up against on the coming up on Saturday. Yeah. So the thing about Masterson, he actually started off his season with 5 straight wins. He was real solid coming out of the gate. And after those 5 straight wins, there were 1 or 2 sprinkled in. He hasn't actually won a game. He's been involved in wins, but he hasn't won a game since April 26th.
Okay.
So Masterson is kind of coming back to earth a little bit.
Another thing I want to bring up here, talking about hot teams, is that the Twins are now on an 8-game winning streak. So, we may have just run into these guys at the wrong time. Hopefully, we're going to turn, and we're clearly not on a hot streak right now. Hopefully we'll turn that around though tomorrow, and I'm excited about. I do like interleague play. I don't want to have it all year long, but I do like it. So, real quick before we get to our break here, this was kind of interesting about Bill Hall. You want to talk a little bit about this and something that pissed a lot of Giants fans off a few years ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, I got to be the one to talk about it because I talked about this last podcast, but. On the last episode, I talked about how I don't like Prince Fielder because of the home run celebration that he did. The bowling pin runs into home plate, jumps, and the entire team falls down. It bugged me. I felt like it wasn't very classy, and I felt like it wasn't something that it was almost kind of insulting. And then Bill Hall, now a San Francisco Giant, comes out and says, yeah, that was partly my fault. It was kind of my idea. We came up with it on the team bus. And it was going to be the next guy to hit a walk-off. Like, it didn't matter who it was. It didn't have to be Prince Fielder. It could have been Bill Hall or, one of the other guys on the team.
It probably wasn't going to be Bill Hall. Let's face it.
Okay, that's fair. But, I mean, it's on that team, it could have been like Ryan Braun or somebody, and it would have been the same thing. Would have said, all right, well, next time we're going to do this. And they had a couple other ideas. They had another one. The guy hits the walk-off home run, and everybody just files into the dugout.
Yeah.
Which you've seen a couple other teams do too lately. And it's just like, okay, you're taking away my reason for being angry at Prince Fielder and at the Milwaukee Brewers, so what do I have left now?
Yeah, exactly. Now I got to be mad at my own second baseman.
I mean, do I have to appreciate the fact that Zach Greinke is pitching his butt off now, or Sean Markham? I didn't want to do that. I wanted to sit here and just be angry at them for the whole season. You've taken that away from me, Bill Hall. Why did you do that?
You son of a bitch, Bill Hall. All right, let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we got a lot more show, but we'll try to cram it into the remaining time. So we'll be right back after this. Okay, and we are back. It's the Torture Cast. My name is Willie Dills here with Ben Lee, and we got a few more segments here to finish out the week. Let's go ahead and start it right up. We're going to do, for our new favorite guy segment, we're going to talk a little bit about, it's that time of year, we're going to talk about the All-Star Game. Bochy gets to pick some guys here, and that's kind of cool. So let's talk a little bit about who we think he should pick and why. Ben, why don't you start us off? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think this is kind of neat just because it's, obviously it's been since 54 since we even had a chance at getting to pick the guys for the All-Star Game. And this was a thing a couple years ago. You really wanted to see some guys from the team make it. Everybody lobbied for Pablo to get picked by Charlie Manuel, and that didn't end up happening in his rookie
stupid
year.
Shane Victorino. Yeah.
I have nothing to say about this.
He's stupid. All right, go ahead.
But, I mean, obviously part of me wants to be selfish and see a bunch of our guys up there. Partly because I didn't get to talk about this on the last episode, but I will be at the All-Star Game this year, which I am really excited about. It's going to be my first All-Star Game. I didn't get to go when it was here in SF, so I'm really stoked to get to see it. And I've been to Phoenix before. It's a great city, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But, you want to see a bunch of our guys up there. You want to see guys who really deserve to be in the game. And if you always feel like, especially as a Giants fan, we always feel like we get overlooked for that a little bit. Well, let's face it, right now, the guys who are our best guys aren't healthy, and the guys who are healthy aren't our best guys.
Yeah.
So out of the offense, unless you make a case for Sandoval or try to make a case for Huff, which I don't really think you can do right now.
No, you cannot.
I can't justifiably say let's get any of our hitters onto that All-Star team.
No.
That said, I do think that at least one of our pitchers is probably going to get voted in by the players, and I could see it being Wilson. I could see it being Kane. I could see it being Lincecum, just partially on reputation and on the fact he's starting to get better again, that maybe the players will vote him into the game. But, the guy that I most want to see Bochy take is Ryan Vogelsong.
I think that's a hot pick, man. The
guy is
really
such a great
pick.
story, and if he can go for a quality start his next time out, he will finally have enough qualifying innings, and if he can keep his stats where they are now and really have a good outing, which you hope against Minnesota he will be the league leader in ERA. He will have the lowest earned run average out of the entire league, and nobody saw that coming out of Ryan Vogelsong.
And nobody can argue with that as an all-star, you know what I mean, for the entire first half of the season. So
right. I mean, Wilson and Kane and even Romo, I think, are guys that you really can justify getting into the game. And Wilson has been so solid this year. You can justify him getting into the game. But Vogelsong, he's such a good story, and he has pitched really solid. He's almost been the stopper that Lincecum used to be for the team this year. You go into a game with a bunch of losses, and Vogelsong is the guy that's going to get the decision. And you feel like you want a guy who is showing off like that and who's really come such a long way and who is a name that people remember, especially all over San Francisco, is going, oh yeah, that guy, he was going to be a big thing at one point. You want to see him get that All-Star Game recognition and really get a place in San Francisco history that, to be honest, I think he's really come full circle and really earned.
Yeah, he definitely deserves it. I'm going to go ahead and pick a name that you haven't mentioned yet, who I think also has, and not just for this year really, but I think as Bochy, you can kind of be a little bit selfish here, and it's always historically what those managers do. They do favor their own guys. This guy is not somebody that generally people think of when they think of outstanding bullpen pitchers, but he really has been for the last couple of years now. And he's doing it again this year. He's had a couple of rough outings here and there, but for the most part, he's been rock solid all season long. And he's had a couple of really incredible performances where he's pitched out of, sick jams. So I'm going to go with Javier Lopez. He's 2.7 ERA, 1.2 WHIP. He's got one save, which was his first in like 6 years. But he only got that when Wilson had, come in like 6 games straight or something like that. But him along with Romo, along with Wilson, along with Affeldt for most of the season, along with a lot of these guys in our bullpen who have really stepped up this year, has saved games and is a key piece to why we have 9 walk-off victories this year. It really comes down to our bullpen. So our pitching staff doesn't just stop at the starting 5. It really does extend. The reason that we're one of the teams that's able to win more games than we lose with the offense we have is because not just their starters are amazing, but our bullpen guys are amazing too. So I would love to see this guy get in the All-Star game.
My thing about that, the reason that I would want to see guys like Romo and Lopez get in is really to recognize the fact that we've got such a killer bullpen and that they're pitching like all-stars. Because really at the All-Star game, what you see is it's starters and closers.
Yeah.
Just because they're really the ones that get the most publicity more than anything else. And Romo really has been pitching like an all-star this year, with the exception of the big bomb that he gave up today. I mean, he's been really solid. And he's a guy that you want to get some visibility to say, hey, look what we're doing down here in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Lopez, I agree based on his last year performance, and I can totally understand Bochy, getting the perk of and wanting to recognize Lopez as a guy who did really well for us last year. This year, he's been used in such a limited role. It's just hard for me to justify. He's been dynamite against lefties, and he hasn't really been used against righties very often. I mean, just enough to say, yeah, he's not too bad against them, but it's hard for me personally to justify Lopez as an all-star for this year, because my take on the All-Star game, even though I agree with what you're saying about Bochy recognizing him, my take on the All-Star game is I really want it to be the guys who have been best this year. And that's one of the reasons that I want them to be able to recognize Vogelsong, is because he was in all over the minor leagues last year. And this year has been a really solid year for him. So for me, the All-Star game, you kind of want it to be to recognize somebody for this year and not for last year. But I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that I just think it'd be really cool to see him pitch an inning in the All-Star game against some of the top lefties that are definitely going to be on that AL team.
That's true.
So let's go ahead and talk about who we should hate this week. And I think I got a pretty good one. He pitched today for the Twins against us. And in 2004, he hit a home run off of Jason Schmidt, who some of you guys may remember, the guy with the amazing 86-mile-an-hour changeup. And Jason Schmidt was one of my favorite Giants when he was here. Unfortunately, he had to go to the stinking Dodgers right after he left, but I forgive him. He hit a home run in 2004. Carl Pavano is a pitcher. Hit a home run in 2004 off of Jason Schmidt and pointed to the stands after he hit this thing. Just a total jerk move. I mean, just why? Why would you do that? You're a starting pitcher, and you just got lucky. He actually hit 2 home runs that year, so maybe he was just feeling like Babe Ruth or something. But he's decided to completely show up the opposing pitcher and point out to the stands. He's also the guy, I don't know if anybody remembers, you can catch some YouTube clips of him beating up trash cans in the dugout. Just an all-around good guy, and everyone should go ahead and hate him.
It's a real class act, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so Ben, let's talk about who we should get.
I do want to just cut in actually really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
If we're going to talk about pitchers hitting, I can't help bringing up that Mota actually got his
a base hit
chance to swing today. He was coming in with an 0 for 4, and he smacks a double into the right field corner.
Yeah.
And Michael Kadire gets totally crossed up by the way that it takes a funny hop off the wall, as it tends to do in AT&T Park. And before you know it, Mota's on second. And I just think it's funny. But Andrew Baggerly was pointing out, the guy used to be a shortstop in the Mets minor league system. I was like, seriously?
And he apparently talks about how good of a hitter he is all the time. So that finally he got to show it off. So
does Jeremy Affeldt, but we've seen that.
Yeah, but I think he knows he's not actually a good hitter. But the fact was that like last year he was 1 for 1. So he decided to tell everybody how great of a hitter he was. I think he's aware that he's not, but.
It's worth pointing out too. The stats I was looking at before, Affeldt is actually almost leading the team in pitches per plate appearance, because he's had 1 plate appearance and he took like 7 pitches.
Yeah, he probably just stood there the whole time. All right, let's talk about who we should get. We know we've got some holes, and you've thrown up a couple of interesting ideas here about people who could potentially fill those holes. So why don't we go ahead and go through those?
Yeah, you know what I think we're really looking at right now is we're seeing more and more right now that we got to do something about the infield. And some of that comes from, watching Tejada clank all over the place out there, with the exception of 1 killer play in the 5th. If you get to see any highlight from this game, that's the one you probably should see.
No, and that was great. But, and the thing was, we're down 8-0 at that point too. So I really do appreciate how hard Tejada plays. It's unfortunate that he's lost a lot of his skills, later in his career here, but the guy does play hard, and the guy's battling. He's not trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's out there giving it his best.
On the other hand, it's worth pointing out that with the exception of Pablo, nobody really dove for any balls or really laid out for anything in the first inning. And the first single that got given up was one of those ones that everybody looks at and goes, if Crawford's in the game, I think he gets that.
Yeah, no,
And,
I mean definitely it's
it's
true.
just-
Crawford has the glove, and you'd like to see him playing every day, even if it's just for the glove, even if he's not a great hitter. I think his glove more than makes up.
You gotta
for it.
have guys in the lineup who are going to be able to protect him and make it less of an issue that he isn't really hitting is the thing.
He's like the perfect number 8 hitting shortstop. You know what I mean? Like in the vein of like a Vizquel. It's like you don't need him to have a lot of offense. You just need him to throw everybody out.
It's true, but if we're not going to be able to get somebody, who's really going to hit at shortstop, if we want to be able to get him back in there, we got to upgrade elsewhere. And one of the things that people were looking at recently was Mark Ellis from Oakland. He's actually been injured for the last few. I can't actually remember how long he's been out for, but you got 2 guys coming up in Oakland who are real good right now, and that's Scott Sizemore and Jameel Weeks.
So there's not really a place left for Ellis.
For Mark Ellis out there right now, yeah. And I mean, Jameel Weeks playing at second right now, being the younger brother of Ricky Weeks, who Jameel actually is profiling to be a little bit better, as he certainly got some more range and a nicer glove. So, I mean, the Oakland is looking at having a couple of guys who are real solid for them right now. And Mark Ellis, who, in my personal opinion, Ellis should have had easily 3, 4, 5 Gold Glove seasons at this point. But because he doesn't hit quite as strongly, or because he is playing with Oakland, which is a team that for the last few years really hasn't gotten as much attention, Ellis has missed out on a couple of Gold Gloves that I really think he's deserved.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I mean,
he
Ellis
hit 290 last year. He did hit 290 last year, and as with all the A's, he takes pitches, he takes walks. So I believe he could be one of those guys who kind of comes in and does give us a little bit of something. In that respect, I mean that's something that we talked about we're missing. So, and he hasn't played more than 120 games. Well, he played 124 last year, but he just that's his number. You know what I mean? He doesn't really get to a full 160. So,
and it's not like we're talking, trying to get a real good hitting first baseman and putting him in at third or something. I mean, Ellis easily is one of the best natural second basemen of his generation. I want to say in the game, but I don't feel like I've seen him enough to justifiably say that. But with Ellis, the thing is, he's a second baseman and he slots perfectly into where we have a big hole right now. I like Bill Hall. I want him to get some more time, but Hall is really best for us right now as a utility infielder off the bench who can fill like 6 different positions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're sort of pigeonholing ourselves by locking him in at second. Sanchez is probably going to be out for the season. Let's face it, you want him to rehab and be with us if we make the playoffs, but Ellis right now is a good option that fits in perfectly where we've got a gaping hole in the offense.
And he wouldn't take a lot to get either, so it's not a bad pick. What about Kataris? Kataris from Milwaukee, right?
Kataris is from Milwaukee. He's a guy that's been talked about a bit. Hank Schulman, the beat writer for the Chronicle, was actually saying Kataris is a guy we should be looking at. Right now, he is actually batting 290, which, of course, you want to say he's batting 290. He's got an on base of 324.
Doesn't that lead the team if he was on our team right now?
On our team, that just about would, except he's only been in about 11 games. He is acting for them right now as something of a backup.
Yeah,
so
he's their fifth, the guy every 5th day who comes out and pitches.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, Kataris really, he's what, like 26, I want to say? Yeah, he's 28 right now.
Yeah.
He's still pretty young, has some time ahead of him, has a little bit of pop. I mean, you're looking at, last year he hit about 9 home runs in 212 at-bats. That's certainly more than we've gotten out of Whiteside or Stewart right now.
Mm-hmm.
Whitey's got a little bit of pop, but you're not going to see it very often. Kataris is a little bit more consistent. He is currently right now acting as a backup to Jonathan LaCroix, but he's a solid guy. He was good for them last year. He batted 203 last year with them, but he only had 2 passed balls the entire season. You want to see him. I don't know. I feel like he's an upgrade from what we've got right now. He's not a huge upgrade. He's a little bit of a lateral
difference
upgrade.
Maker, but he's definitely something to stop the bleeding a little bit. And
and he's got a little bit more. He's got a little bit more offense. The only thing is, I'm trying to look up some of his fielding information right now. I'm trying to see how frequently he was able to throw guys out.
Well, let's be honest, though. Our pitching is really the reason people steal on us. We have a lot of guys who are slow to the plate.
All right.
Especially out of our starting lineup. So honestly, as long as we don't have to give up a lot for this guy, I think he's the perfect kind of guy who can plug a hole for one season, which is really what we need. We don't need somebody to come in. I really wanted Pudge. I don't think it's going to happen.
I can't see that happening. But
Yeah.
for me, one of the things that I see about Pudge is kind of like bringing Benji back. He's marginally faster, but Benji had that, he had that knack with the rest of the team and that ability. I mean, Pudge is a clubhouse leader, but I'm really attached to Benji Molina as a guy, and I feel like it's like going right back to that.
Yeah,
So.
that's true. Yeah. Well, the one that, of course, is kind of the holy grail here for Giants fans is Jose Reyes. So, is there still buzz? Are we still thinking that we might be able to get this guy? What's going on with this situation?
I don't feel like we're looking at getting Reyes that much anymore. I mean, everybody is saying, well, the Giants need an upgraded shortstop. I mean, we do, but I feel like what we'd be better served doing is plugging one of the other holes that we've got right now at catcher or second and getting Brandon Crawford back in there.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have also noticed that. People aren't talking about Reyes coming to us as much now, and I think the biggest problem that I have with Reyes, he's not the kind of guy that Sabian goes for. I mean, Sabian really has gone for guys that he's going to get a couple of years out of. He doesn't do the rent-a-player thing very often, and Reyes right now, there is no way that Reyes doesn't test the free agent market. I mean, the guy is easily one of the best, if not the best, offensive shortstop in the game right now.
Mm-hmm.
Him and maybe him and Tulo. I mean, you're looking at two of the guys in the National League that are the killer hitting shortstops right now above anybody. And there's almost no way that Reyes doesn't try to take that and see how much he can get if he shops himself around.
Well, he clearly would be a rental for the rest of the year. He's definitely going to be testing the market at the end of the year.
It's true.
I mean, you can't not when you're 28 years old and you're hitting the way you're hitting right now. He needs to pick up a giant contract this year, and he's going to do that. So,
yeah,
if we don't have to give up a ton and we can pick him up, if we can get, I would give up a Sanchez if Zito can do what he can do for 1 year of Reyes. I really would. I don't know if the Mets would really go for something like that, but I don't think Sanchez is going to stick around for a much longer and be a quality guy since he hasn't really been able to find it yet. Bumgarner, I'm a little bit less interested in giving up. I think we want to keep him. Yeah, I think we want to keep him. And but honestly, I mean, yes, we've had a lot of injuries. I still would really like to give this title defense its best shot that we can give it. And even if that means mortgaging the future just a little bit to try to do it again, I just think, fans, we deserve that. We deserve them to try their hardest to win to win it all again when we won it all last year,
To be fair, I do feel like we're in that spot where it's like almost anybody could take this division, and if we can push past the Arizona Diamondbacks, there's not a lot of other people that are competitive right now. San Diego definitely isn't. The Dodgers aren't in any position to do it just because things are in such upheaval over there. And Colorado.
I'm losing you.
It's hard to say that that it seems kind of like we really should be pushing for try and get that division right now. I have trouble giving up Sanchez for it just because he's so frustrating, and he will have those moments of brilliance, and you're just like, I want you to be good, and I want you to put it together and turn into a left-handed Tim Lincecum, and he won't do it, but he's consistent enough that it's hard for me to be like, well, let's give up Sanchez for Jose Reyes. I mean, if we were going to give him up for somebody that we were going to have for a couple more years, like who's been, I'm trying to think of somebody who has a couple of years left that we could trade for that'd be really solid for us right now in a position we need. I mean, if we could trade him for like Jameel Weeks or something like that, I'd be able to justify it a lot more. But I don't feel right now like Sanchez for half a year Reyes really is going to do it for me.
I guess. I just really think that we got to go for it. And to me, Sanchez has the potential to throw a no hitter, but he also leads the league in walks. So if we can get value for him right now, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather if we could throw in a couple of guys like maybe Ehire Adrianza, who's a shortstop down in the minors right now, or Craig Westcott, who's been doing real well with San Jose, guys who aren't necessarily in the long-term plans, but who've been really solid. That's, I might be able to get behind that, but there's something that bugs me about trading for a rent-a-player, and especially trading guys who are looking like they're in the organization's long-term plans.
Yeah.
Whether Sanchez still is, it's hard to say the way he's pitching right now, but
Yeah, but he was last year, and I mean, yeah, he had some bad games in the playoffs, but he also had some really great games that got us there. So, all right, well, you know what? We're pretty much out of time, but before we go, why are we going to win it all? Ben, do you have any answer to that?
I feel like we're getting to the point we're starting to get some guys back. You're seeing Pablo get back in the lineup, and once he's had a little bit of time to readjust, I think he's going to be pretty solid. Mike Fontenot is hopefully getting ready to start rehab pretty soon down at AAA once his groin loosens up a bit. Zito's about to come back, and he's currently pitching real solid. And Darren Ford is burning it up down there. He hit a home run to help stake Zito up while he was, just today during that shutout. If some of these guys can really put it together and get back up to the big leagues, I feel like we're starting to get some of our big bats back. We're not going to get Posey, we're not going to get Sanchez, but we can get Pablo. Fontenot has been pretty solid, and he plugs in that middle infield well. If we can get a couple of these guys back and get them moving again, get Darren Ford back in as a pinch hitter or pinch runner, maybe not as a pinch hitter, but I feel like if we can get some of that team mentality of it's going to be a different guy every night. We just need to have some of the guys who are capable of coming up big like that back in there. And right now we've got a lot of guys who I think can and will have those nights, but I don't think that we have enough of a group in that's consistently going to come up and grab and hold each other up. We're starting to get that back though, and I think that when some of these guys get back in the lineup, I think we can potentially go and take it all.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to say that we are going to win it all, because our division is garbage, and we will make the playoffs, and then anything goes. All right, so that's going to do it for us. My name is Willie Dills for Ben Lee and Mike G, the absent Mike G, who will hopefully be back next week. This is TortureCast signing out. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care.
The loveliness of Paris seems somehow sadly gay. The glory that was Rome is of another day. I've been terribly alone and forgotten in Manhattan. I'm going home to my city by the bay. I left my heart in San Francisco. High on a hill, it calls to me to be where little cable cars climb halfway to the stars. The morning fog may chill the air. I don't care, my love waits there in San Francisco. Above the blue and windy sea, when I come home to you, San Francisco. Golden sun will shine for me.
Thanks again, everybody, for listening to the Torture Cast, a podcast about the San Francisco Giants by and for the fans. If you want to contact us, you can do so by emailing us at torturecast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter we are at TortureCast. You can send your questions, your comments, anything you want. We will be more than happy to read it on the air and answer it if we can. For Mike G and Ben Lee, my name is Willie Dills, and we'll see you guys next week. Hum baby.